We're going to begin learning about flight and airplane design by using a program called Fly2Learn. Fly2Learn was developed by myself and Randy Witt from X-Plane. All right, and we developed this program to teach young people about aviation, but really about the engineering process. Okay, but let's begin by talking about aviation. And let's look at this program right here. Ask this question. How many airliners are in the air right now? And if you go to a place called Flight Radar 24, okay, and if we go there, which I'm going to pull this up right now, it's a pretty amazing program. It's going to bring up and show us how many airplanes are in the air at any given, not airplanes, I should say airliners, because there's literally much more smaller airplanes in the air than general airliners. But at this given time, there's 6,000 airliners in the air in any given hour. It's 144,000 airliners a day. That's nearly 3 million in 20 days. When's the last time you heard of a big jet airliner crash? It was months ago, most likely. They're rare events. And this just drives home the fact that flying in an airliner is extremely safe. Now, one really cool feature you can do in this program is you can click on an airplane. And I say airplane, I mean airliner. And for example, in this one, this is going from London to Charlotte, where I live. So I can literally follow this over the next few hours as it comes home to Charlotte. So if I have family on there, we can track it out. So that's really one thing. If you got a family member that's a little bit nervous about flying, go ahead. This one's from Tokyo down to Atlanta, which is quite a long flight. All right? And there's all these other features we could add on to it. Here's a cockpit view. You can tie it into Google Earth. We're really not going to go into that. This is breaking it up on what their flight leg was doing, so it centers it for you. There you go. There's one plane on it. So to me, it's really a remarkable bit of programming that you can track the whole course all the way down. All right? So you can track a family member wherever they're flying. Okay, this is all based on public information, so you can go on that. Okay? All right. And then I'm going to upload it, and there's all the flights, so you get a sense of how many flights are flying in. And there they haven't filled in those. Obviously, there's flights there. All right. And again, got to give them Flight Radar 24. Very cool, free program. Thought you might find it of some use. Okay. Let's get back to our flight. So with 6,000 airplanes in the air, it'd be pretty cool to learn something about this industry. And it would be really cool to design planes with it. So now, let's talk about our introduction to Fly2Learn. And let's talk about X-Plane. Now, if you don't already have the disk, you can get the disk from X-Plane demo software. There's a link, and it's basically if you do xplane.com/download/older, you'll find a screen that looks like this, and will allow us to use X-Plane. After about 10 minutes, you have to reload up the program. All right. Now, so when we say the FTL Fly2Learn program, what are we talking about really? We're talking about X-Plane 9, teacher and student worksheets, which if you go on Edmodo, you should have your student worksheets. And then find presentation materials, presentation slides, videos, lessons on how to, and then webinars. And obviously we're doing this is a recording of a webinar, so those videos will be saved for that. But if you go under education on the Fly2Learn website, you can access all this. Also, you can access it on Edmodo, and this webinar is on the Young Engineers of Today's YouTube account. Now, what is X-Plane? It's a flight simulator. It also includes a program called Plane Maker, which allows you to create virtual airplanes. It's very, very authentic. We'll talk down the road why that is the case. But it is also used in industry. The curriculum is 10 lessons. First 6 lessons are more the science of flight and how to use the software. The final 4 lessons are more engineering themes. We're going to practice some STEM skills, data collection, data analysis, and engineering trade-offs. And students design airplanes in the final lesson. Now, what do we want to do with a sample lesson? Well, so in a sample lesson, we do an introduction, show a video, we hand out the worksheets, and then you go ahead and do it. This, and on the webinars, how we're going to do this is I'm going to give you an explanation of the lesson. I'll show you how to do the key things in the lesson, and then pause it and give you time to complete that activity. So in other words, part of today's lesson, you'll practice taking off. I'll show you how to take off. Then I'm asking you to pause this video, practice taking off. When you're done with that, come back. We'll talk about kinetic and potential energy, and we'll finish up the lesson. All right? So, here is the content. Again, you can get this on the Fly to Learn website. You can get it on Edmodo, and so it's already been posted on Edmodo. All right, and there's the first. You can see the first flight. May the forces be with you. Left drag. We're getting all the forces of airplanes. So there's what a PDF. I've opened it up. This one you see on the first page. There's been about 29 iterations at least now of this curriculum, so please, if you'll take the time to read it, it will help you get through it. Plus, I'm going to show you some tips right now. The biggest step is you're going to use the quick flight setup to get wherever you want to go in the X-Plane software. So I've already gone on to start up X-Plane. I'm going to bring it up right now. All right, and when you go flying, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to Settings, Quick Flight Setup. There it is. We use Innsbruck-Laue. That's where we're going to fly from for the most part. There's mountains on either side. It's kind of like a big fence. It helps you find out where you're going. You'd be amazed if you took off right by your house that once you get up in the airplanes, you wouldn't recognize. It'd be hard for you to spot your house. All right? New pilots, right off the bat, that's the first thing everybody's doing is getting used to, hey, what's below you. After a while, you get very familiar with it, but in the beginning, it's all very new. We're going to be using Cessna 172 pretty much. I soloed in 172. I'm not a pilot, but I did solo. Mr. Witt, he's got thousands of hours, and I think he's flown one of these as well. I think most pilots have. Here we go, and this sets the time. If yours shows up dark, set this to 8 o'clock. You should be okay. All right? And that'll put you on the runway. If the runway looks foggy, it's done because the graphics card on your computer might be a little bit challenged on the software. All right, so if you see that, that's what it's about. Now, to take off, first thing we do, we hit pause. See the pause. Then we click on the brakes. Use our down arrow key to go down to this throttle, and we push our hand in. Go back up. All right, so let's do this again. We hit pause, turn off the brakes by hitting B for brakes or just clicking on brakes, pushing the throttle. Once we're set, click on this square. This is our flight control. It's like a yoke. So you don't need a joystick. You can do this with your mouse. So I'm going to hit unpause this. I'm going to start going down. It's going to pull to the left, like in an actual airplane. Also, you can see over to my left here, there's an instrument movement. Think of that like a speedometer. All right? It's an airspeed indicator. I'm going to start going down the runway. I'm going to wait till this needle gets into the green area, and then I might pull my arrow down, which is going to pull the nose up of the airplane. All right? I'm going to hit pause in this. I'm going to go ahead and shrink this down a little bit, move it back down. That's how we're going to fly. Let me show you one more time, and then I want you to try it. Let me just show you the screens. So there we are. Go up here, hit pause, and you can hit P for pause. You can click anything. You can even click pause on your keyboard. You don't necessarily have to go right up there off the bat. Then hit brakes, then move in the throttle. Push in the throttle. Then, once the throttle's pushed in, this is pause. You do want to click up here so there's a white square. Then once your pointer's in that white square, you can control the airplane. So, practice taking off. Again, this is what you do. Press P to pause. Turn off your brakes by clicking on the brake or hitting the B. Push in the throttle. If you don't see the throttle, use the up and down key on your computer to look down. Okay? And then fly it. So I will show you one more time. Here we go. I'm already off the ground. So I'm going to go back up in here to settings. I'm going to go quick flight setup. I'm going to go back over here. If I click there, I end up right where I left off. But if I do this, quick flight setup, and I say go to this airport, I'll end up starting on the ground just from the get-go. If your plane's not flying, just click on go back to quick flight setup, go to the airport, and it's like starting over. So here we go. I'm going to hit pause. That white square's already happened to be up there. Brakes are off. Use the down arrow key. Then I'm going to take this. I'm going to push the throttle on. What am I going to push it in? I'm going to use my hand. See how my hand changed on that. Then I'm going to go back up here. Go up and click on this cursor pointer. All right. Now that square came up. Let's unpause it. I'm going to start running down the runway. The plane is going to want to pull a little bit to the left. That's what really does happen in a real airplane. All right, so we're going to hold that down a little bit. Try to keep it on that point. In this case, I'm kind of taking off. My plane's pulling a little bit to the right. Go figure. So I'm at 70 knots there. I'm going to pull this up. And there we go. All right. Pause it. Okay, I want you to take a moment now and practice this. Take a few minutes where you can take off. We'll talk about these instruments once you're done taking off. So go ahead, pause this. Go ahead, take off a couple times. And then come back. All right. You've come back. I'm assuming you've taken off a couple times. Let's talk about these instruments. This is an airspeed indicator. It tells us how fast we're going in knots. Think fat miles. This is an attitude indicator. See a lot of blue, you're going up. A lot of brown, you're going down. This is an altimeter. The short hand is worth thousands, long hand's hundreds. So it's almost 2,000. So you see it's almost a 2. The 100 is past 900. It's at like 940. All right. Now, what this does is this tells us how high we are off the ocean, not how high off the ground. You can take off in Charlotte, for example. You can be flying in Charlotte at 1,500 feet. You're good to go. We're 600 feet above the sea level. No worries. But if I keep flying at 1,600 feet with my altimeter, I will fly into and I'm going west. I'll fly into the North Carolina mountains because the mountains are 6,000 feet above sea level, the highest one. So remember that you're not above. It does not measure above ground. It measures above sea level. And in this world, in fact, where we took off here, it's more, we just took off and we're at nearly 2,000 feet above sea level. This helps us with coordinated turns. This helps us with navigating. This tells us if we're climbing or sinking. We're really going to talk about these three instruments in a few moments here. All right? Oh, if I can move this down. All right. So what I would like you to go back to your lesson, your PDF, you're going to see where we talk about potential kinetic energy. Remember, potential energy and kinetic energy. Energy never created or destroyed. It simply changes shapes. And so what we want you to do is take off in your airplane. You're going to take off already in the air. And there's a way to do that. So let me go down here. Pull it up. If I do settings again, quick flight setup, but this time I do final approach 3 nautical miles, and again says this in the handout, and then I click on go to the airport. It will take you right back down on the ground. You're saying, oh my gosh, I just said I want to do 3 nautical miles. So this is a little bit of a trip up, so I got to show you what you have to do. Go final approach 3 nautical miles and hit X, and you'll be up in the air. And what you're going to do on this lesson, I'm hitting pause, you're going to write down on that sheet, you just draw it in with your pencil what your airspeed is with this altitude indicator. So half blue, half brown. Just write it in there, and then just say, draw the hands on your altimeter. Again, we're not worrying about being quite so accurate on this. This is more of a qualitative analysis. Down the road, we'll be very quantitative. We'll be definitely reading values and averaging those, but for this lesson, we don't. All right, then you're going to hit pause. You're going to have this plane. You're going to point the nose down like this for 3 seconds. Roughly 3 seconds, just to make sure you don't hit. Then you record what these 3 instruments are doing. Then unpause it and pull the nose up. Again, let's And then let's see what this instrument's doing. Now you see what this is doing. You see what your airspeed just did, what your altimeter setting is. All right. If you would do that for me, I'd really appreciate it. Go ahead, try. Let's go back. Go ahead in your worksheet, fill out that lesson. Let's trap potential energy for kinetic energy. Fill these out. They're blank. Fill them out, and then we can talk about this lesson. Okay. All right. Then, go. There it is. All right, now, so hopefully you filled out these. You filled out this, you fill out this one, and this one. So pages, you've worked on pages 6 and 7. If not, pause this, go ahead and complete them. All right? I'm assuming you've paused the video, you've completed. So let's answer some questions. You as a pilot want to go faster. Do you point the nose up or down? You should point the nose down if you want to go faster. You're flying faster and faster. Is your kinetic energy going up or down? Well, there's two types of energy. Potential energy. That's the energy that you get when you... That's potential, and kinetic energy is the energy of movement. So in an airplane, potential energy is represented by altitude. Kinetic energy is... What would you think it would be? I hope you said airspeed. In terms of energy, why does your plane slow down as you climb? Well, you're trading off kinetic energy, the speed, your airspeed, for altitude, potential energy. You don't touch the throttles. Can you climb and fly faster? No, you can't. That would require more energy. When you hear people talk about perpetual motion machines, this is one of the ways we show that perpetual motion machines just will not work. You can't both climb, get both potential energy and kinetic energy unless you're going to add more energy to the system, i.e. add throttles. Why is it dangerous to fly low and slowly? Well, it's an energy deficit problem. In other words, you don't have enough energy. You're too low and you're too slow. If you're too low, you can run into a tree. If you pull up to climb over the tree, well, that'll really slow your airspeed and you'll stall. And we'll learn down the road what a stall is. But you're basically falling out of the sky because you don't have enough lift. All right, flying higher. If you're going faster and faster, at some point the airspeed will stop increasing. Why is that? It's something called terminal velocity. That is, as you're falling through the air starts to rub back at you. Just think of when you're in the ocean or in the water. If you stand outside the water at the beach, you can run pretty fast. If you get in the waist-deep water, it's hard to run. That water resists your movement. Same thing with air. Now, normally we've grown up since you've been born in air, so we hardly notice it. We pick it up when we're in the wind. But the reality is if you fall fast enough, far enough, the air will start to cause friction. Friction will cause heat, and that will burn up. That's why meteors and meteorites burn up as they hit in our atmosphere. If we dropped you out of the space station, you would burn up. All right? But we're not dropping you out of the space station, so you have nothing to worry about. All right. That's really what we wanted to do for today's webinar. Tomorrow we will look at weight. Or I should say the next webinar we will look at weight.